What's up, guys? Matt Odell here.
And this is Gary Leland, and you're listening to episode 134 of the Crypto Cousins podcast.
Feed your interest in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies by joining Hall of Fame podcaster Gary Leland on the Crypto Cousins podcast. And remember, we are all cousins in the world of crypto.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to the show, Matt. Second time here.
Very happy to be here.
A little bit different conditions this time than last time, though, right?
Yeah, tell me about it. It's pretty unreal, this whole situation right now.
It's really unreal. We were just talking before the show started about that, and I said, let's get on the show and talk about this. we could talk about all this. I think it's crazy, and I agree with you. I don't think people have any concept of what's going to be coming down the pike.
People just think we can just restart the economy when we have 20 million people unemployed right now and small business owners around the world. You know, it's not even just a domestic issue. This is a global issue that are just in pain right now. They're getting absolutely destroyed, not bringing in any income. And I really worry about the knock-on effects that'll happen down the line because of this thing.
I think there's going to be so many effects. Not only, I mean, it's just like a house of cards or a domino. Like when you set those dominoes up, you know, knock one down and the next one goes, you know. For instance, I'm a small business, but my sales tax to the state this month should have been about $5,000. They're going to make about $500, you know, off of me. So, and then if you think that I'm a small business, so you take every business in the state of Texas, and if they got that kind of downward trend, so the state now is running out of money. I'm not just talking about the people. I'm talking about the state who's going to try to support people. They don't have any money. So, and they can't print money like federal government can. So I don't know how that affects it. It seems like that would affect it even more than the federal government to me. If the states don't have any money.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, I mean, I've been talking about on our podcast a lot is a lot of people look at this crisis from the perspective that we had a super healthy economy before. But I'm of the belief that it was a house of cards to begin with.
I agree with you completely.
Yes. So we end up in a situation here where a lot of these small businesses are super leveraged. Their landlords are super leveraged. The states are super leveraged. And then when you just stop all income generation there for a couple months, the whole thing just goes up in flames. Like, how do you recover from that? And hopefully we can recover, but it's going to be painful. There's no easy way out here, even though the stock market is like completely disconnected from that reality.
Yes, I'm just sitting here riding, and we have because we didn't pull out early enough, so we're trying to ride it back up, you know, before and have a cutoff. Every day we change our get out number, you know, as it goes up, so we can benefit this time, because I believe we did. I think it's all going to fall apart, and I'm scared. You know, I'm in a good situation. I mean, really, compared to most people. I'm 65. I could just be retired, but I'm not, because I enjoy working. But I got Medicare. I got no bills. My house is paid for. I got money in the bank. So I'm in an okay situation. I'm not one, that's why I don't do much whining, you know. But there are a lot of people, like my daughter, for instance, who's young, bought her first house a year ago. Now, what happens there? And is this housing market, all these people in her situation, are a lot of them going to start selling their houses, and no one's buying houses. So now she's paying for a house that's worth half of what it's worth. You know, so she's going, wow, I love this house, but I'm paying for a so many dollar house that's only worth so much money. I just have to walk away. I mean, that's kind of like that domino effect again.
Yeah.
And we saw what happened the last time with the housing market, what that did by itself.
Yeah. And this time it's not just the housing market. I come from a similar perspective as you. You know, I am much younger than you, but I've always been very conservative. I have savings. I said to you before we started recording that all things considered, I'm good. Yeah. You know, but I really do feel for people There's a lot of people that were living paycheck to paycheck that are in a heavy amount of debt, just bought their first home. And you have to wonder, especially the young people. I'm from New York. I see people who have been hustling for 8 years, 9 years. They still have debt. They have no savings. They've gone job from job to job, slowly moving up the ladder, finally getting a decent income. And then the rug was just pulled right out from under them. And that has to trigger a perspective change, right? Like, what was the point? Why was I doing this whole rat race to begin with? What do I have to show for it?
And now you're kind of going to have to start over too, possibly.
Exactly.
Maybe who you work for doesn't hire you back. Maybe they can't be that size. Maybe they go out of business, and now you're starting over from scratch. I interviewed the Bitcoin rabbi last night, and he was real excited that he had talked to you recently, I think, and he was a nice guy. He's a real nice guy.
Great dude.
But yeah, really nice. But do you think that, or let me rephrase that instead of are you surprised? Because I kind of am that we're not seeing more crime. And I'm not saying that in a negative way, or is it being hidden to us? Because I would think personally, if I was one of those people who had like one paycheck's worth of savings and I had 3 kids and a wife I was supporting, and I hadn't made any money in 3 weeks, I would have to go steal some food. I couldn't let my kids starve. I mean, if I couldn't find any food any other way, I would go steal it. I mean, I'm just being honest. I'm not a thief, but I'm not going to let my kids starve. So are you surprised we're not seeing more of that? Or do you think there is that and we're just not being shown that because you're scared it's a contagious thing? That if people see it, they get the idea.
I mean, I think if there was heavy crime, we would see it just because of social media and whatnot. It's pretty hard to keep a lid on that kind of thing nowadays.
That's a good point.
I think it's probably one of the few silver linings of the crisis is that people seem to be coming together and like helping their neighbors.
Right.
We've seen in past crises, New York is a super dense city. When they had the power outages in the 80s, like it just devolved super quick. So to not see that right now, to not see mass vandalism, theft, breaking and entering and stuff in the big cities is definitely, that's definitely a silver lining. You can't say otherwise. But the question is it because it's just early in the crisis? It could be, right? Like maybe that's still to come. Hopefully it's not. Let's see how does this unfold going forward? When do people start getting back to work? Do people actually get hired for the jobs that they lost? Do we see mass downsizing from companies? What does the Fed's reaction here does it actually help? Do these $1,200 payments they're sending out to people actually, help bridge that gap? Is that enough? Does it matter? I don't know. It should be interesting to play out. Hopefully we don't see mass crime. But I mean, it's on the table, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's something. I've seen mass crime for reasons less than what's going on right now.
Exactly.
So I have to agree with you. It is a silver lining. And if it was going to happen somewhere, I would think the place that we would be seeing it is New York.
In Chicago, all the big cities, Detroit.
Amount of people there in a small area. And then a lot of the police they're down too because they're sick too, just like everybody else. So
yeah, I have a buddy who works for NYPD. They gave them 1 mask each.
Really? Taking care of them.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, let's. I want to ask you a couple of questions about Rabbit Hole Recap. How long y'all been doing that now? I want to change subjects here because it seems like this has been the content of my show for the last 3 or 4 episodes. Is the virus? I want to find out.
Yeah,
about how long.
It's super tiring. That's all that's been talked about lately.
Yeah. I know. That's all I see.
People can't help themselves.
That's all I see, and I wasn't going to talk about it. Next thing I know, we're talking about it. So, so let's switch over to Rabbit Hole Recap, though. How long have you and Marty been doing that together?
I think it's 2 years in August. I think I'm not sure. It both feels like it was yesterday, and also that it's been like a decade.
Well,
It's
it's a
hard
great
to
show.
like
It's one
keep
of
it
my top
framed.
shows. I love that show. I love it when you two get together and talk.
Thank you.
You talk about
That's why
stuff
I
that
do
I'm
it.
interested in. I mean, I think is why I like it so much. But yeah, and one of the things that you've been really on is Coinjoin, mixing coins, and all this. And I'm not sure I'm getting the importance of all of this. And so that was another one reason I wanted to bring you on, so I could figure out, and people who may be like me and don't understand why you think that's so important, you can tell us, the scoop here. Give me a rundown on what's so important about this. Why do I need to, if I get some Bitcoin, do anything with them besides put them in my wallet?
It's a bigger issue than just Bitcoin. With the rise of technology, we've seen privacy get trampled on a massive scale. Like governments now are able to mobilize their efforts in a way that we've never seen before. Individuals are able to mobilize in an unprecedented way as well, but governments, also have that power, and even more so because they're, these central behemoths. They're these big organizations. So the question really becomes, do you trust the people in charge? And in America, maybe that's an open question for people. But I think there is no question that, well, for most people, I don't think they would trust, the Chinese government or the Russian government, right? So the issue is, if we let our privacy get overrun here, if we let them easily track every location you've been to, every single payment you've made, every single message you've sent, and the wrong people get that power, it's going to be really hard to come back from that. The ability for the masses to be controlled by a small few, it's never been in this state before in human history, I would say. And so right now, at least with money, we have cash, right? Cash is very private to use cash.
Right.
But I see a world where cash goes away. Where there's governments around the world have been trying to restrict cash usage, and then not only that, individuals want to move to digital. My peers prefer to spend with Venmo, back and forth,
Right.
or Cash App rather than actually use cash. A lot of my peers never even interact with cash. They have their credit cards and they have their payment apps, and that's all they use. And those are all tracked. So if we don't have a private alternative, I think we're going to have major issues. So this is all tangential to me. It's payments, it's the ability to move around privately, it's the ability to communicate privately. And then on the other side with communication, this crisis has highlighted it to the extreme, right? Because we've always been able to, for the most part, been able to communicate privately in person, right? We meet up in person, we have a drink, we're able to communicate privately. But our communications are slowly moving more and more digitally. And this crisis, everything's moved digitally. We have people having happy hours on Zoom. So if you're not able to communicate privately, if all that's able to get hoovered up and put in a database and searched through and used against you at will, that's going to have some really chilling effects on freedom, just in general.
Well, one of the things you said there is you think that paper money or money is going to disappear as we know it now. What leads you to believe? I've been seeing that a lot lately, hearing a lot of people say that. What makes you think that's any more of a reality now than it was 5 years ago?
Well, because the world is increasingly digital. Like I said, the younger people aren't really using cash, so that's already it's the market is almost dictating it. But then at the same time, America's been a little bit better about it compared to other places in the world. But we see in like Europe, they're doing more and more restrictions on how large of a cash purchase you can make. if you try and remove a large amount of cash from a bank account or deposit a large amount of cash in a bank account, it arises suspicion.
Well, right
Um,
now, I know 3 people I've talked to in different part of the countries that have gone to the bank to get large amount of monies and were told they couldn't have that much money. You know,
exactly.
one place was $2,500 was the most he could get. One place was 3,500, and this is like East Coast, West Coast, and center of the country. And another part of the country was like 3,500. So
Right.
even though they all went in to get like 10,000 or so, that's all they could get.
Exactly. And a lot of times, if you take out a larger amount of money, they ask you, what are you using the money for? They have you fill out this activity report so they can submit it. It becomes a suspicious transaction, just the act of using it. And then I have friends that are in Europe that they say if they try, cash isn't officially banned in their country or whatever, but they try and spend with cash, the the merchant, wherever they are, the merchant thinks it's suspicious. They don't. They wonder, why is this person paying with cash when they could just use their card and get some points.
So it's
So
automatically something suspicious because you're not wanting to be tracked.
yeah, the act of privacy is suspicious itself.
So do
So
you
I
think we'll
worry
have a
about
Fed
that.
coin or something? Is that what you're saying?
You don't even need a chain or like a blockchain or anything. They could just,
Oh,
they have trillions of dollars of stimulus spending.
yeah.
They could just spend $500 million on an app, and you plug in your social security number, and then like
There's your money.
that's your money app,
Yeah.
and you can send money to people and move it between banks and stuff like that.
It wouldn't even need a bank, I wouldn't think then. They see how much you have in the bank and it gets on your app.
Well, I mean, that's a different thing. Our government uh, is in a lot of ways bought and paid for with lobbyists, being paid by corporations, and then and then the lobbyists going after the politicians and everyone donating to them and whatnot. So I don't think banks are going anywhere because of that. Like
Because of
even
the
though they
money they
might
get.
not be necessary in that situation, they'll make sure that they got a hand in that pie as well.
Yeah, they're not wanting to like lose that profitable income they're making. There's too many rich people making too much money, I guess, on that end. So I see what you're saying now. I was thinking when you first were saying that of some type of Fed coin, but you're right, it's not needed at all. You just make a government version of Venmo,
Exactly.
and there it is. There it is, and they know every dollar you spend. I guess that really stops counterfeiting, and it stops people from doing uh, events that they don't pay taxes on too.
Right. Well, that's what they'll use as the excuse. They'll use the excuse of tax evasion, crime, counterfeiting, um, protect the children. That these are the common appeals to emotion that they use in these situations. But like I said, like just even if you love our government currently, it can take a turn at any moment. At any moment you could have people in charge that maybe you don't trust, that don't have your best interest at heart. And do you want them to have that kind of control over you?
So
Do you want them to have that kind of control over the masses?
let's go back to mixing and stuff. So how is this? I understand now what your reason is. How does this help in that area?
So with Bitcoin, we have this. I think it's more of a growing pain issue, but we have this issue where we have these large fiat on ramps and off ramps, and they're all regulated, and they all have KYC, super strict KYC. Link everything to your name, your address, your social security number, everything, and they have data sharing agreements where they're sharing all this information among each other. They're not necessarily even protecting it that well. We saw with the Equifax hack where almost every adult American had their financial information compromised. Um, and that was, there's no opt in there. You're automatically in Equifax's database. You have no choice. You're just automatically in there. It's part of the system. It's built into the whole system. So this information can get leaked. This information can get voluntarily shared. It can get bought. And with that information, they're able to track all your Bitcoin transactions, how much Bitcoin you have, and every transaction you make in the future, and also potentially in the past if you commingle it with past transactions. And because Bitcoin's a public ledger, this is all transparent and out there. The part that's not transparent is the KYC aspect. But I suspect that maybe 90%, 95% of new people coming into Bitcoin are going through KYC services. So if you put all that together, you end up with a very grim situation where not only are the Bitcoiners who are using KYC services getting tracked, and potentially if that gets leaked, like criminals and whatnot will know how much you have every transaction you make as well, or foreign governments, right? Maybe the Chinese or the Russians hack KYC and then they know as well. But it ends up in a situation where the people you transact with, you compromise them. So let's say you went through KYC. You have some KYC Bitcoin. I come down to BitBlockBOOM in August, and you pay me some Bitcoin and it goes into my wallet. Unbeknownst to me, that I now have a transaction that's linked to Gary, right? I'm one step away from that KYC. So it actually hurts the privacy of everyone else in the system at the same time. So I consider this almost an existential threat to Bitcoin. Bitcoin will probably be fine regardless, because I think long term we'll have a circular economy where you don't buy Bitcoin, you earn Bitcoin, and you don't sell Bitcoin, you spend Bitcoin. So those fiat on ramps, off ramps aren't as important. But until then, it definitely presents a threat to actual Bitcoiners, right? And if our best tool we have right now, because there's no protocol improvements really in the pipeline, is Coinjoin. And the issue with Coinjoin is the whole concept of Coinjoin relies on being a part of a larger crowd. So if you don't have other people doing it, it's not going to be that effective.
So are you saying that, well, first of all, when someone's going to pay you something in Bitcoin, do you ask them if it's been mixed? Or do you have a separate wallet for that?
Well, first of all, you should always segregate everything. You shouldn't be like commingling your Bitcoin funds. And yeah, I mean, look, I don't ask them.
Explain that to me. Explain that to me. What does that mean?
So if you were going to send me Bitcoin, I would create a new wallet, and I'd label it Gary, and that would be the funds that Gary sent me, and then I would deal with that accordingly.
And then you're not going to end up with 1,000 wallets someday because 1,000 people sent you 100th of a Bitcoin. You're going to open up that wallet, I guess, and Coinjoin it,
right?
And then just get rid of the wallet unless I ever send you any more money, maybe.
Right.
So you're keeping all these wallets.
Right. Before Samurai had the Coinjoin built into mobile, it on the spot doing on the spot Coinjoins was not very feasible. So you segregate first, and then you Coinjoin afterwards, and that provides you some decent protection. It's not perfect. Like Coinjoin isn't perfect. But you have to remember, like, if I don't Coinjoin after you pay me and you're malicious, you could potentially track my past and future transactions as those funds get commingled with my other Bitcoin.
Right.
So, and if someone has compromised you, then you might not be malicious, but they can then track me through that as well. Right. So it becomes a very insidious issue. And really the most practical way for us to handle that right now is for Coinjoin to be normalized, for people to just do it as best practice. We don't reuse Bitcoin addresses anymore. We know that if I give you an address and then I give some guy, Tom, the same address, that Tom can see your payments to that address, we don't do that anymore. And Coinjoin is just another type of Bitcoin transaction, and it should be normalized to the point where, it's an improvement. It's just a net benefit there.
So now, am I incorrect, or have I read something or seen something or heard somebody say that there is a kind of people who won't accept mixed coins that have been in mixers, or there's a problem on that end?
Well, so I don't know if you noticed, I've intentionally keep saying Coinjoin, not mixing.
Yes.
So there's.
I didn't know the proper term. So
yeah, no, that's fine. Plenty of people call Coinjoin mixing. This is just my personal preference. This is how I like to frame it. With historically in Bitcoin, Coinjoin was first proposed, I think, in 2013. It's relatively new. Historically in Bitcoin, people that were seeking privacy used something called the custodial mixer, right? And the idea was you would basically send Bitcoin to a third party, and that third party would send you different Bitcoin. They would send you someone else's Bitcoin, and that would break the link on chain. This custodial aspect has made it very much a target for governments. It's they consider it money laundering. So if using custodial mixers is a very bad idea from a legal point of view. Coinjoin, the difference with Coinjoin is it's a Bitcoin send. It's a batch Bitcoin send with other users, usually with the same exact denomination. So you have a bunch of transactions that go in at 0.01 Bitcoin, for instance, and a bunch of transactions come out at 0.01 Bitcoin. So you're never actually giving up custody of your funds. You're not getting someone else's coins. You're basically creating, let's say 5 UTXOs go in, 5 new UTXOs come out. And you do have a centralized coordinator that handles that in terms of like a service like Whirlpool, but you could do it with just peer-to-peer. So like me and you could do a 2-person coin join. And if you looked on the chain, it would be a guessing game whose funds were which when you hit that point. So then in terms of legality, there have been some issues recently with people depositing into KYC compliance services, regulatory compliance services like exchanges and stuff, where they've had transactions flagged. Those transactions, I'm pretty sure all those transactions have been related to Wasabi, and Wasabi was using this fixed fee address, and there was this proximity involved with that fixed fee address. So the issue was you would have a scammer come into the Coinjoin round, and they would pay this fee address, and then you would go into a Coinjoin round and you'd pay the fee address. So all the transactions were like linked to that fee address, and the exchanges didn't want that. It was too much liability for those exchanges. So one of the beauties of Whirlpool is there's no deterministic links to any transactions that go through there. There's no links to like there's not a central address that has proximity. So hopefully we won't see flagging happen there. There hasn't been flagging there. There might be though. There's a chance there still could be. Coinjoins are completely visible on chain. If regulators or institutions want to use that as a flagging characteristic, then they might. But the way I view it is like they could also just ban Bitcoin. Like you might not be able to sell your Bitcoin in your country at any given time. You never. That's a risk you take when you own Bitcoin. So I hope that we can further educate institutions and regulators, but I'm not going to get my hopes up on that. I operate under the belief that it's like a one-way system. I have no intention of ever selling Bitcoin on a KYC exchange. I have no intention of needing to do that. The whole idea is that we're opting out for a whole different money. If you're the idea that you're going to go into a store in 5 years or 8 years and try and spend Bitcoin, and that store is going to look back at your transaction history. How far do they look back? Are they going to, and try and analyze it and decide if you can spend or not? If we hit that point, which ironically we'd probably be more likely to hit if people didn't use Coinjoin, I think Bitcoin has bigger issues on its hands, and it's not really a very useful money if people have to do these analysis to deal with it. So it's like a little bit of a chicken and an egg kind of thing.
Well, would it be a time period, or would it not be a certain amount of hops for the Bitcoin?
Yeah, but like, where do you draw the line? Right?
Well, I know, like the ATMs, CoinSource ATMs, they told me, one of the guys that is the owner of that company tells me that they follow Bitcoin 5 hops, and if during those 5 hops, it goes to the wrong person, you can't use those machines anymore.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Well, that's what he said.
But like, how is that so like, let's say you buy at the ATM and then
Yeah.
you send me Bitcoin,
Correct.
right? A completely legal transaction. Then I coin join it, right? They're going to flag you, right? Or then let's say I pay you Bitcoin that I've coin joined, and then you try and sell it.
Well,
Are
he
you
didn't say
supposed
coin
to?
joined. He was more like if I bought Bitcoin and sent it to you and you sent it to Lebanon or something,
Right.
and the
But
guy
see,
into hands of terrorists, then I'm kicked off the machine,
right. But
even though
see,
I had no idea.
exactly. Well, that's one of the reasons why CoinJoin, we need people to use CoinJoin, right? Is because you have these situations that are completely out of your control, where Bitcoin can have perceived taint by regulators or not. The thing is, I think this is all antithetical to Bitcoin. Like, if you want to be completely regulatory compliant and you want to day trade Bitcoin and you want to buy a bunch of Bitcoin and then sell it 6 months later because it ticked up a little bit in price or whatever, then you leave it on exchanges, or you just send it out to one address and you hold it non KYC, you hold it non custodial in your own address, and then you send it right back in, just one transaction out, one transaction in. By all means, like, if people want to do that, they want to do that. But if you want to actually own Bitcoin, if you want to actually use Bitcoin, you're gonna, like, every spend should be a coin join. You should do as many coin joins as possible. You should be constantly doing it. It's like, it'd be like if you were using the internet without encryption. Like, if you were just, or if you were screaming your personal conversations like on Main Street in front of everybody. It's like the most ridiculous thing ever. It's just basic financial privacy.
So I assume you have made a video showing people how to do coin.
No, I haven't yet.
Because I know you
But
make
I'm
a lot of
working on it.
videos, so I just assumed you might have. Hey, before we go any further, I do want to take advantage of this opportunity to make sure if anyone's listening or watching that is not familiar with BitBlockBoom, that they go to bitblockboom.com and check out our conference that we're still planning on hosting in August in Dallas, Texas. So check out bitblockboom.com, and if you decide to get a ticket, use the word cousins at checkout, COUSINS, and that'll save you 30% off the price of your ticket. But you think we're going to see that, Matt? You think I'm still planning on it? I mean, I'm still moving along everything as though we're going to have it happen.
I sure hope so. Last year was a lot of fun. A lot of great
This year,
Texas
I think, was going to be
Bitcoiners.
really great. I'm really kind of, we were selling tickets at a good pace. We had a lot of new people there I wanted to meet. That's the thing about it. I got to meet so many people that I didn't know. And, we had things starting on Thursday, with the dinner, welcome dinner Thursday night. And more things are being added. We're getting ready to add the Citadel thing that was going to happen in San Francisco. She asked if she could do it during BitBlockBoom.
What, Katie's thing?
Yeah. So she's going to do that on Friday.
And then I want to do my own. I have Bitcoin Citadel. We want to do a workshop.
Yeah, like I said, I'm, my goal really is for someday this to be like a week, of events, and most of them not be mine. That other people are doing so many events that, now we got it starting on Thursday. I figure next year we'll probably start on Wednesday, and go till Sunday. So that's
what I really enjoyed about BitBlockBoom last year was that it was a very intimate event. There wasn't that many people there. The price was very accessible. It was a very low price. So it just was a very good atmosphere. Like, the atmosphere was just fantastic, and you deserve all the props in the world for that, because you threw a great conference, and I strongly hope that it will happen again this year. And I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say it's going to happen. So we'll see.
Like I said, I'm planning on it happening. I'm still moving full steam ahead. It's funny, ticket sales were going really big, and now they slowed down. There's one a week here. It's funny. I saw like 4 the other day to people from Norway. 4. That was a kind of a surprise there to me.
Yeah, we had a decent amount of Europeans there last year.
I actually am always surprised. I had more people, I think, from Europe maybe than I had from Dallas, which is right where it's at, And then I had someone say to me, said, well, that's because you're not having any local speakers. And I said, well, that made no sense to me at all. You can go see those local speakers anytime. Why would you pay? These are the people you can never see. So
That is true.
that's true. I want to ask something about wallets. Okay, we coin joined this money, this Bitcoin. But let's say this guy, Fred, has 10 Bitcoins that he's gathered, over time. He's been coin joining them. What should he do with these 10 Bitcoins to keep them as safe as possible? I wouldn't think you'd want to put them all in one wallet, in case you get robbed at your house and you have to give them one because they do a lead pipe attack. You want to give them a wallet to get their ass out of there. I would think you'd want several wallets. I mean, what do you think is the best thing for someone to do if once they get this all done and now they got to store it?
Yeah, I mean, so like this question comes up all the time. It's obviously a very common question.
I'm sorry I asked such a common question.
No. It's a very important. It's probably one of the most important questions. But the problem is it depends on your particular situation, right? There's a lot of nuance here, but good rule of thumb, as you said, multiple wallets, right? That's always a very good rule of thumb for people because you compartmentalize, right? Like if something happens to one wallet, whether that's theft, physical theft, whether that's digital theft, or whether that's just a bug in the wallet code because you can't read code, it's good to have to use multiple wallets and to split it up. I think it's super important for people to store their own keys. Usually in this case, it's usually a hardware wallet, mobile wallets as well. Basically hardware wallets and mobile wallets are where we are. Like I think there's very little reason to, at least for the average user, to be storing Bitcoin on their computer. If you're more advanced, maybe you're running like Tails or something like that, which is a privacy focused persistent OS on the computer. And that's how you generate your keys. And there's all these complicated ways where you can do better cold storage than maybe you would obtain from a hardware wallet. But basically where we're at is hardware wallets and mobile wallets, because on mobile, it's a more hardened platform. They're more security. They're more secure devices in general for the average user. And you want to split up your funds so like any single wallet doesn't screw you. As far as hardware wallets, there's only 3 that I would ever recommend, which is Cold Card's my favorite, and then Ledger and Trezor. After that, it like kind of just drops off a cliff, and you don't really want to use like fly-by-night hardware wallet makers that doesn't have a lot of code review or whatnot. And then hopefully we'll have easy-to-use multi-sig, so you'll be able to use multiple hardware wallets to store your keys. So if any hardware wallet is affected or compromised, your funds aren't stolen. Your funds aren't taken in that situation, and that does help you as well in those lead pipe situations, because you can keep the keys in different locations, right? So like you keep them stored in all different places. And then as far as mobile wallets, like my 2 favorite mobile wallets, I think Samurai is the best mobile wallet there is. It's only on Android. And then if you have an iPhone, like Green Wallet is pretty solid by Blockstream.
So you named 3 wallets there. NVK's Cold Card, and then Trezor and Ledger. This Fred has 10 Bitcoin in this scenario. So should he have like 3 of each one? Or should he have all of one? 10 of one? Let's say he's like wanting to put 1 Bitcoin on each one because he thinks a Bitcoin is going to be worth $1 million, and he doesn't want $1 million, $10 million on one wallet.
It's a personal decision. It depends on your situation. I would, usually people don't just, 10 Bitcoin is like a decent amount of money. Well, right now that's like $70,000. I imagine most people aren't storing just immediately 10 Bitcoin themselves. So they're going to hopefully come in slow and steady and get used to it and learn the wallet and actually use it. So they get comfortable with it. You want to get comfortable with it. I usually tell people you want to back it up with a small amount of Bitcoin on it, back it up, wipe it, and then restore it. So you know that process works. So you're not trying to do it in a disaster situation where you're trying to restore the backup. I usually tell people they should buy 2 of if they get a hardware wallet, they should buy 2 of them. You're going to buy a cold card, buy 2 cold cards. Then, you can initialize it. You set up your whole cold card, you create the backup, you send a little bit of Bitcoin to it. And then you can reinitialize it on the second cold card. So you don't even have to wipe the first one, and you can make sure your restored process works, everything goes smoothly. And then you have a second cold card with your able to access your Bitcoin. So you can put them in two different locations. And if something happens, you don't have to actually restore the seed on the fly at that moment. You can just, go to your backup cold card and have it ready to go. So I'm a real strong believer. And like what we just said, 10 Bitcoin.
Yeah,
So that's
Fred has.
$70,000. Like what? You can't buy $200 devices. Like that's ridiculous. Like of course you can. Like that is worth it. That is, buying a second one is worth it.
So should Fred buy 10 or should Fred buy 2, and then as they get more valuable, start subdividing again? That's what I would think. I would think Fred should maybe buy 2 and put Fred, or let's say we got Joe and Joe's working to get 1.
Right.
And Joe gets 1. Should he stop doing that wallet and move over to his second one? Start filling it up, on the hopes that it's going to be worth a lot. Or does it matter at all?
I mean, in this particular situation, I like having 2 that are the same wallet, right? So like in that case, I'm not talking about necessarily splitting it up between those 2 wallets. If you have 2 cold cards, they mirror each other. They're controlling the same wallet. Like I said, I think Bitcoin in general should be a process where you come in and you slowly get your hands dirty and you learn more as you go. You
Right.
shouldn't there's like 2 sides of the spectrum. You don't want to be someone who just blindly buys Bitcoin and just leaves it on the exchanges. But you also don't want to be someone who just all of a sudden just deploys all their savings and just immediately throws it into a wallet they've never used before. You want to be in the middle ground. You want to slowly and steadily improve your understanding of Bitcoin, get more comfortable with it, and adapt how you have it, how you're storing it, how you're securing it over time as you get more comfortable, and as you realize what trade-offs you're making and what concerns you have. What is your threat model? Who are you worried about? Potentially taking your Bitcoin? Are you worried about the wallet manufacturer? Are you worried about your government? Are you worried about a criminal? Are you worried about your significant other? I mean, if you're worried about your significant other, then probably you should get a new significant other. But like these things should all be, you learn as you go. No one, the idea that, first of all, I think maybe there's a few Bitcoin experts, but most people aren't an expert. I think it's almost impossible to ever be an expert in Bitcoin. And I think this idea that like, oh, I'm too much of a noob to understand is also ridiculous, because we all came in as noobs. We all started as fresh Bitcoiners that had no idea what was going on. And you slowly learn over time. And if you have questions, you ask and you learn. And fortunately, like Bitcoin is a very accessible community in terms of learning and knowledge. We have lots of resources on the internet, and we have lots of active people that are happy to answer questions or happy to help you along that process. But you should never it does come down to personal responsibility. And in this world right now, most people have been trained to have zero personal responsibility. So that is a major, it messes with people's heads, but it does come down to personal responsibility. It is your money. You are responsible for storing it, and you have to take the appropriate measures to learn, make yourself better, and store it properly.
Well, as Spider-Man says, with great power, which having your own money is, comes great responsibility.
Exactly.
So that's one of my favorite quotes for this. And I know someone famous said it besides Spider-Man, but I always think of Spider-Man when I think of that quote. Well, we're getting near the end of the show here because I try to keep these at a certain amount of time. And before I go, and I appreciate it, you gave us a really good walkthrough on coin joining and wallets, and hopefully that's going to be helpful for someone out there. And you educated me because I wasn't sure that I was following the coin join. I wasn't even calling it the right thing. So I appreciate that. So is there anything you want to make sure and say before we get out of here? I don't want to cut you off and there was something you wanted to cover or go over. Or...
No, I mean, look, I thank you for having me. I always enjoy our conversations, both on the air and off the air. I'm really looking forward to BitBlockBOOM, so I really hope it happens. I'm excited to participate in it again, and I want to do a workshop, as I said.
And,
I
we
really
want you to do one. I want you to do. You know what I think is going to happen, Matt? Here's what I'm predicting. It's going to go one, two ways. It's going to cancel either. That's one. And I'll just send everybody back their money, you know, or me having this at the end of August and everybody else's events been canceled for the whole year or postponed. I'm going to be like the first real event, and I'm going to have the event of the year. I mean, it's going to be one or the other. It's going to be the best event ever, or it's not going to happen.
This is what I said to you in like early March when it looked like Bitcoin 2020 was about to be canceled, but it hadn't been canceled yet. And I was like, anyone who complained about throwing a conference in August in Dallas when it's super hot, because I've never experienced heat like that before, but
yeah, I bet.
Until I came down there. Like, joke's on them, because it might turn out to be the perfect timing and location for it, you know, especially as, you know, people are saying like, oh, the heat can mitigate maybe the virus spread and stuff like that. So, you know, I'm cautiously optimistic there. But what I want to leave people with is, don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. You want to get your hands dirty. That's the best way to learn. At least that's my favorite way to learn. I think that's how people learn. That's why I like the workshops. Get your hands dirty, you know, get comfortable with storing your own keys, learn how to use your own node. You want to run your own node. It's getting easier to do it now. And play around with Coinjoin. You know, I completely understand that some people just want to, you know, be completely regulatory compliant, you know, and ask for permission for everything. And that's, you know, by all means, if you want to do that, that's fine. But as I said, you know, I think that with Bitcoin comes great responsibility, and you owe it to yourself to learn how to use this stuff and to play with it. And once you play with it, you'll see it's not this scary boogeyman. It's just Bitcoin best practices.
Yeah, just taking the time to learn what you need to know.
Exactly.
And there's a ton of resources out there. I agree. I mean, there's a ton of resources. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. If anyone wants to follow Matt, you're Matt_Odell. Is that right?
Correct.
So follow Matt. He's always got great things that he's posting. You're one of my favorite people to follow too. So I appreciate you coming on the show again. Thanks a lot. And hopefully I'll be seeing you in August.
Thank you, Gary.
This is a Bitcoin Boomer production.